15-year-old Jake hesitated at the front gates of Westbrook High, his backpack hanging loosely and his gaze fixed firmly on the ground. The weight of the day's uncertainty settled heavily in his stomach. It was his first day at a new school, and the air buzzed with the sound of laughter, casual conversations, and tight-knit groups of friends. Everything that seemed so effortless for everyone else. To Jake, it felt like walking onto a stage where he had no script, no cues, and no idea what role he was supposed to play. He had hoped that moving would give him a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the teasing and the feeling of being alone in a place where no one stood up for him. But as he took his first steps down the crowded hallway, it was hard to shake the feeling that he was just an outsider, waiting for the same painful cycle to begin again. "Hey, new kid," someone called, snapping him out of his thoughts. Jake looked up just enough to catch the smirk of a tall boy leaning against the lockers. Laughter followed, making Jake's face flush, and he quickly looked away, hunching his shoulders as if to make himself invisible. He slipped into his classroom and found a seat near the window, staring outside and counting down the seconds until the bell rang and the awkwardness would finally fade. At least for a little while. The teacher introduced him briefly, and the class responded with a polite but uninterested murmur. Jake barely looked up. He'd learned that attention rarely brought anything good. But what he didn't know was that elsewhere in the city, a conversation was happening that would change everything. It involved someone whose name he'd only seen in news headlines, Elon Musk. Jake's first day crept by, filled with whispered comments and cautious glances. By the end of the day, he noticed an unusual buzz moving through the school. It started as quiet conversations by the lockers and grew into a hum of excitement that even Jake couldn't ignore. He overheard bits and pieces, words like "unbelievable" and "is it really him?" drifting through the noise of the hallways. Jake shrugged it off as some school drama he wasn't a part of. Little did he know, he was about to find himself in the centre of attention in a way he never expected. His first week at Westbrook High passed in a blur of new faces and soft laughs. Jake stayed in the background, moving from class to class like a ghost, unnoticed and unbothered. He had become an expert at blending in, sliding through the days so quietly that even teachers sometimes forgot he was there. A skill he had developed out of necessity at his last school, where every day felt like he was balancing on a thin rope over a pit of insults. But on Friday, everything felt different. It started with the teachers acting strangely, more alert and focused than usual. Even the school secretary, who was usually glued to her phone, hurried in and out of the main office looking almost panicked. By lunchtime, the energy in the halls was electric. Students huddled in groups, their eyes wide and voices full of excitement. "Did you hear? He's coming today," Jake overheard a girl whisper to her friend as he walked by. He only caught a few words, but they were enough to make him wonder. Who's coming, he thought, then shook it off. It wasn't his business, and he'd learned to ignore things that didn't directly involve him. Still, the whispers followed him, growing louder as the day wore on. By last period, Jake's science teacher, Mr. Holcomb, who normally moved as slowly as molasses, kept glancing at the clock, looking tenser than Jake had ever seen. Jake's classmates traded glances, their eyes flickering to the windows as if they were expecting something, or someone big to show up. When the final bell rang, the principal's voice crackled over the intercom, cutting through the chatter. "Attention students and staff, please make your way to the science classroom for a special announcement. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated." Jake's heart pounded as the room exploded into a noisy shuffle of chairs and footsteps. Special announcements were rare, and the fact that this one was happening after school only added to the mystery. Reluctantly, he followed the crowd, feeling the day's suspense weigh down on him. The science classroom was packed with students buzzing with excitement, their chatter filling the air. Jake found a seat near the back, trying to stay invisible like always. But he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening wasn't just a special event. This was something huge. Deep down, He felt an unsettling sense that this moment was about to drag him out of the shadows. As everyone settled into their seats, the room thrummed with restless energy. Students exchanged curious looks and whispers, completely unlike the usual quiet of last period. Jake sat stiffly, eyes darting to the clock as he tried to focus on the notes in front of him. But he couldn't ignore the feeling that everyone was waiting for something big. And he hated that feeling, that sense of the unexpected, of something pulling him into the spotlight he worked so hard to avoid. Mr. Holcomb, their science teacher, stood at the front of the room, trying to keep up the usual routine. But his nervous glances at the door and the way he fidgeted with his tie made it clear that something unusual was about to happen. The whispers grew louder as the principal's voice suddenly crackled over the intercom, sounding tense. "Attention, students and staff! We will be joined by a special guest shortly. Please stay seated and pay close attention." Jake's stomach tightened as the excitement around him spiked. He leaned back in his chair, wishing he could disappear. Whatever was about to happen would draw a lot of attention, and Jake had spent most of his life learning to avoid just that. The classroom door swung open, and an expectant silence filled the room. The principal walked in, looking flushed, followed by someone no one expected to see at Westbrook High. Elon Musk strode in, a confident smile on his face, and the room erupted in gasps. Even Mr. Holcomb looked stunned, his mouth hanging open. "Good afternoon," Elon greeted, his tone calm but commanding. "I know this isn't your typical last period science class, but I'm here for a special reason." He scanned the room, his gaze briefly meeting Jake's. Jake felt his heart jump and quickly looked down, hoping his face didn't show the sudden heat he felt. "There's someone in this room who knows what it means to keep going even when life gets tough," Elon continued, and everyone fell silent again. Jake's mind raced. "No, this can't be about me," he thought, but a part of him began to doubt as Elon stepped forward with a box in his hands. Elon walked down the aisle and stopped right in front of Jake's desk. The classroom went completely still. Every eye was on Jake as he tried to process what was happening. "Why me?" he thought, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Jake's eyes locked onto the box Elon Musk held out to him. The entire room's attention seemed to suffocate him, making it hard to breathe. He looked up at Elon, who gave him an encouraging smile, and slowly, with trembling hands, Jake reached out to touch the box's smooth surface. His mind buzzed with questions, but none could make it past the lump in his throat. "Go on, open it," Elon said, breaking the heavy silence with a gentle nudge. With shaky hands, Jake lifted the lid. Inside was something that took his breath away, a sleek, silver device that looked like it belonged in the future. As he touched it, the screen lit up, displaying a welcome message. "Welcome, Jake. Your journey begins here." The classroom burst into excited murmurs, with students craning their necks to see what was inside. Jake looked up at Elon, searching for an explanation. "This," Elon said, motioning to the device, "is a prototype of a personal AI assistant. It's designed to help people learn, create, and connect in ways that haven't been possible before. It hasn't been released to the public yet, but I wanted the first one to go to someone who truly deserves it." The murmurs around him grew louder, filled with awe and amazement. Jake felt his face flush as he struggled to make sense of what was happening. Then, overwhelmed by the enormity of it all, he burst into tears. The idea that someone like Elon Musk would notice him, let alone choose him for something like this, was almost too much to believe. He took a few shaky breaths, calming himself as the tears slowly subsided. But then Elon's expression changed, a serious glint entering his eyes. "This isn't just a gift, Jake," he said, his voice steady but intense. "It's a tool to help you, and others, understand that even when life knocks you down, you can always find a way to rise up stronger. I want you to show everyone here that resilience isn't just a word, it's a way forward." Jake's chest tightened. He could feel the eyes of the entire room on him, But this time, it wasn't the kind of attention that made him want to vanish. It was different, almost hopeful. Before Jake could react, Elon turned to the class. And to make sure this kind of support keeps going, I'm funding a new program at Westbrook High. It'll provide mentorship, innovation workshops, and resources for students who need a boost. The room went completely still again, the weight of Elon's words hanging in the air like a heavy blanket. Jake blinked, struggling to take it all in. This wasn't just a moment, it was a turning point. For him. For everyone. The room hummed with a stunned silence as Jake tried to process what was happening. He still sat frozen, gripping the edges of the box, but inside, it felt like a weight had lifted. Around him, his classmates exchanged glances, some wide-eyed in disbelief, others already whispering with excitement. A girl in the front row raised her hand hesitantly. "Mr. Musk, is this for real? A whole program just for us?" Elon smiled widely. "Absolutely. Starting next month, Westbrook High will be the first school to pilot this initiative. It's not just about technology, it's about creating a community where everyone has the tools to succeed. And Jake here is proof that even in the hardest times, there's potential waiting to shine." Jake felt a mix of embarrassment and pride rise within him as everyone's gaze shifted back to him. The disbelief was still there, but now something else simmered beneath it. Hope, maybe even a sense of belonging. For the first time, he wasn't just the quiet kid in the back. He was Jake, the one Elon Musk believed in, the one everyone was watching. Elon continued, "And that's not all. We're partnering with some of the brightest minds in tech and mentorship to create a space where students can innovate, grow, and support one another. This isn't a one-time thing, it's the start of something much bigger." The room erupted in applause, some kids cheering, others clapping. Even Mr. Holcomb, who had been frozen by the door, gave a nod of approval, his eyes shining with pride for Jake. Jake looked around the room at classmates who had never given him a second thought. Now, their expressions weren't filled with judgment, but with admiration, curiosity, and respect. As the realization set in, Jake's pulse slowed. This moment wasn't just a spectacle, it was a chance. A chance for change he never thought was possible. And as Elon glanced at him one last time with a look that said, "Make the most of this," Jake felt something stir within him, a sense of purpose. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had what it took to stand out, to make a difference. The school day ended, but the energy at Westbrook High lingered in the air. Students walked out in tight groups, still buzzing about the surprise visit. Jake packed up slowly, still processing everything that had just happened. The silver device felt heavy in his backpack, a reminder that everything had changed, and not just for the day. "Jake, wait up!" a voice called from behind. Jake turned to see Michael, one of the more popular kids who had never paid him any attention before. His chest tightened, but Michael's expression was different, open, even friendly. "That was pretty awesome, man," Michael said with a small nod before walking off to join his friends. Jake felt a warmth spread through him. As he stepped out into the cool afternoon air, the usual sense of dread that came with the end of the school day was absent. A small crowd of students stood by the entrance, discussing the new program and what it could mean for them. Some glanced at Jake with a mix of envy and newfound respect. He wasn't sure how to feel yet, but it was better than being invisible. Elon's visit had done more than just surprise everyone. It had opened a door Jake never imagined would exist. As he walked home, the weight of that realization settled over him. The hum of a car engine drew his attention, and he looked up to see the same convoy of vehicles that had brought Elon to the school. One of the cars slowed, the window rolling down just enough for Jake to see Elon's face. "Hey Jake!" Elon called out, his voice carrying over the low hum of traffic. "Remember, the next chapter's yours to write." Jake managed a small smile, feeling the sincerity in those words. The car pulled away, and for the first time in as long as he could remember, Jake's heart didn't feel heavy. It was light, full of hope. He walked the rest of the way home, replaying the events in his mind, letting them sink in. His fingers brushed against the device in his backpack, and a quiet determination grew inside him. The next chapter of his life might be uncertain, but one thing was clear. He was no longer just a face in the crowd. He had been seen. Now, it was up to him to step forward into whatever came next. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.